Very, very good morning to all of you. It's going to be afternoon soon. First and foremost, our company and myself are deeply honored to be invited by the organizers to this wonderfully set up summit. And today, I'm trying to provide all of you with an overview about our journey. We are not here to market. I try my best to describe the process and also the vision and what we intend to move on in the future. And maybe a little bit about our technology as well and how applicable is it in today's world. So the name of my company is EyRIS, and I've been with this company since it's actually started in 2018. And the vision of our company is to actually become a first-stage medical diagnostic company. That means it's a platform, not just one algorithm, but a series of platforms, a series of algorithms on the platform to be able to not only help the doctors to be able to diagnose, not to diagnose, but to be able to pick up the patients and also referring the patients timely to the doctors, be anywhere in the world. And in the sense of what we have actually started off with in diabetic retinopathy, we all know that diabetic retinopathy can only be treated at early stages. At late stages, usually the treatment is usually quite futile. And this is what our company's vision to be, and we hope to be able to reach there in the next 2 or 3 years if we did everything right and also with the proper investments. So before I go on there, I want to talk a little bit about the technology that our company is actually focused on. Our company actually does use the fundus image, which is the image of the back of the eye, to be able to detect. Now, currently, we are able to not only detect eye disease, but also to detect systemic disease. The reason why we are able to do that is because of the embryonic blood vessels. So when all of us are in our mother's womb, we have this standard set of blood vessels called the embryonic blood vessels that is consistent not only in the heart, the brain, the kidneys, but also at the back of the eye. And this set of blood vessels are not replaceable, and they follow us throughout the rest of our life. And research has shown in the last 15 to 20 years that actually any disease state of especially cardiovascular in origin diseases does have anatomical and physiological changes in those blood vessels. So when we first started, we thought that we were only able to detect eye disease, but using big data, and eye disease can be also detected by an ophthalmologist or by an optometrist, but using big data, it's possible to not only detect eye disease, but it's also possible to detect other diseases that is associated with the embryonic blood vessels, be it even to the extent of being able to give a predictive risk of Alzheimer's disease. Because actually Alzheimer's disease is actually to do with the blood vessels of the brain, but also to give some diagnosis of the kidneys and the heart. And that's what is the origin of, this is basically the science behind what we have actually developed. So the next thing I'd like to address is when we went to market, it's beautiful algorithm, right? You are able to diagnose different eye disease from the eye. You're able to provide other systemic disease from the eye. But there needs to be a paradigm shift of the concept of I'm trying to detect or filter out patients for kidney disease using the eye. So it's not easily accepted. And it's the problem of going to market actually doubled when fundus camera was actually very expensive. So, and this technology will most probably be more useful in the primary care. And so what we did was we also had to venture ourselves into the hardware and to be able to find a cheap solution to be able to get doctors to adopt the technology. A traditional fundus camera, I know in a room full of ophthalmologists, you can be easily, I don't know the price in Jordan, but in Singapore it's about 28, 35,000 US dollars. It's going to be difficult to convince widespread use of this technology. So what we did, we went around the world looking for companies that are able to come up with solutions. So today, if some of you do visit our booth just now, our camera is a handheld camera that's only less than 1 kilo. The traditional fundus camera is about 25 to 30 kilo. So with that particular camera, what we are doing currently in Singapore is that you buy the AI from us, but the camera is literally given for free. In the past, it cost a lot to buy the camera. Then before you actually, then you think about the AI. But now what we do is we make the consumers think about the AI first before even the hardware. So that is actually what I mentioned earlier, the ability to translate the science into business, but also conquering and crossing borders where sometimes is, they don't think, sometimes from the business angle and from the scientist perspective, they don't think about the ability to scale or to be able to grow the business. That is, but it is unique. Each company, each product is unique in its own way in terms of what needs to be done in order to scale. So I'm sorry, because just now when the panelist was here, they will talk about drugs, which is a very different ballgame, right? But mine is actually technically a medical device. So this is the background of what we are trying to do. So at the present moment, the camera you see is handheld, so you can be easily shot anywhere. And the information is uploaded on the internet where the results will be returned to the handphone in about 10 to 15 seconds. But the problem now in the implementation is still we need human to basically implement it. Someone needs to press the button. Someone needs to position the camera on the patient's eye. So what we have gone further today and what we are currently doing research in our company is the ability to come up with a fundus camera that is totally unmanned. It doesn't require anyone to operate and is able to shoot the images, accurately goes to the eye, shoot the image, and capture the image and upload it onto the artificial intelligence. So that is what we are currently doing. So how do I envisage the future? The future envisage is everyone register their particulars on the app, on a handy handphone, go to this unit and scan the QR code, and in which way you already tag the patient to the images, and the images automatically being taken. It can be anywhere. It can be in a doctor's office, maybe even a shopping mall, and where the results are being returned to the patient's handphone in about a minute. So that's the direction and the final goal of what we are trying to do with our company. Now, I started off the entire talk with what I want to do for the future. Now I'd like to bring you all back to the origins of our company. So the first problem statement we have is actually diabetes. And we do know that diabetes is an exploding problem around the world. Speaking to the doctors over the last 3 days while I was in Jordan, some have quoted that the prevalence of diabetes in Jordan could be as high as 25%. Some have actually quoted me that it's 48% for patients above 50 years old. And scarily, 50% of the patients who actually have diabetes actually don't know that they have diabetes. And more importantly, 1 in 3 diabetic patients will develop diabetic retinopathy. And speaking to one of the doctors yesterday, he quoted me that 48% of the patients who actually have advanced diabetes actually do develop some severe form of diabetic retinopathy. And that's the statistics that was provided for Jordan. And we all know that for diabetic retinopathy, the only way to treat it is to actually through early detection. That's where our technology comes into play. So what has actually happened is in 2006, 2008, the Singapore Ministry of Health realized that diabetes was going to be a big problem. And they know that there are a lot of patients turning blind. So what they did was they said, okay, we have 21 public clinics in Singapore. That means those are government-sponsored clinics. So we're going to put 2 cameras in each of this clinic, and we are going to capture images for all the diabetic patients that walk through the clinic, and we are going to send the images to this center called the Ocular Reading Center in Singapore. And with that, they were actually having human graders, like non-physician graders. That means they're not specialists, they're not doctors by training, to grade the images day in, day out. But it is a very tedious job, because when the images come in, and these graders actually sit in the center, in a darkened room, and it was part of a joke that it's like a dungeon, right? Because it's dark. And in front of them, they are looking at images and images after, and it's sort of not a very attractive job in Singapore. So many people, and it takes a lot of effort to train a grader, right? It takes 6 months to train a grader, and in order to be classified as an experienced grader, you need to be in the industry for 5 years. That's according to the National Health System, which is developed by the UK. And we could not actually retain the talent in the ability to grade. And we could not increase the workforce for grading. And thus, what actually happened was we could not scale up the diabetic retinopathy screening in Singapore because we did not have enough people at the center. But what happened was, even with the few of the graders in the center, we still managed to see about 100,000 patients per year. So over a few years, which is data collected from 2008 to 2012, they realized that actually there's a huge amount of data, over a couple of 100,000 images. And that's where they either clicked, and at that juncture, at the same time, machine learning became in play. So they started training the first set of using the data in the Singapore Ocular Reading Center to train the algorithm. Then what they did was they used information or data from the next following years to be able to validate whether the data works or not. So what actually the numbers are actually 210,000 images used to train the AI, another 210,000 from the following years to be able to validate the AI. And then what we did further, we actually wrote to 10 different institutions across 6 different territories, including Mexico, the United States, Australia, China, Hong Kong, and also data from Singapore. And from there, we collected another 71,000 images who are patients of different ethnic groups. And we validated against it, and we combined all the data, and we published in 2017 in JAMA. It was our company's landmark paper. It was actually the Research Institute's landmark paper. And happy to share that with you when I show you my email. Anyone wants more information or more papers, please write to me. And that's how Selena Plus was born in 2017. Okay? So what I've actually described is what I've gone all the way up to 2018. And what we have actually done recently is the ability to detect chronic kidney disease, stage 3 of chronic kidney disease, and that should be in the pipeline. I think if some of you visited my booth, our company's booth, the algorithm is already there for you all to try. So we are able to detect whether the patient has actually stage 3 kidney disease, and it's very significant. Why is it significant? Because we do know that a large population of diabetic patients do develop kidney disease. So this is what we have. So because our product is technically considered as a medical device doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a hardware. It actually can be a software as well. And because it's classified as software as a medical device, we needed regulatory clearance. We first went to Singapore in 2018, and we asked the Singapore local authority to say, I want to register this as a product. They looked at us and said, I don't know how to do it because it was so new and no one knew how to basically do the test and all the regulations. So they went to the FDA in the US to basically pick up all the sets of how they validate, and they brought it back to Singapore. And together with our company, actually we developed a set of regulations on how to register an AI as a product. That's where we started in Singapore. And in many countries we go to, including, there's a few countries we go to, or actually many countries we go to, there's still no regulations for software as a medical device. But in the countries we have currently a regulatory approval in few of the Southeast Asian countries. We also have the CE mark. We are actually also got our regulatory approval all the way to Brazil and also to South Africa as well. In fact, we are a reimbursable item in one of the insurance company there. In any sort of invention, the reason I want to talk about insurance companies, any sort of invention or whatever you all guys do, is very, very important to find the payer, the person that is going to pay the bill. And sometimes it may not be the patient. And usually if you are able to find, usually it's the government or insurance company that we go after in order to be able to find the payer. And usually that's how we are able to break ceilings and actually get the product commercialized. But more importantly is that our first product is also able to detect not only diabetic retinopathy, but also glaucoma suspect, and also age-related macular degeneration. Our workflow is very simple. You basically upload the 2 images or 4 images onto our artificial intelligence on the cloud, and we return the results back to you within 10 to 15 seconds, depending on the speed of the Wi-Fi or the speed of the internet in the particular region. And we give you a report within the 10 to 15 seconds in a PDF format where you can be shared with the patient. More importantly, we are also currently working, because in business we are also looking for different sales channels. We are also working with different camera manufacturers that actually carry our product at the same time when they sell their cameras. We're working with an insurance company in South Africa. And in Singapore, we are currently not only implemented in the public sector, but also in the private sector. So that's a quick overview of our company. And more importantly, we currently have presence in 26 countries. And hopefully through my journey this round in the Gulf area, I will most probably hopefully to be able to increase the countries a little bit more after this trip and be able to find people who are happy to use our technology. This is the landmark paper that I've described to you. So in the development of the algorithm, we used 6 different models of camera from 4 different brands. So someone will say, Stephen, why are you bothered telling me about cameras, right? The reason is because from a regulatory perspective, it is important to identify the camera you're using, because different cameras produce different kind of pixelation, and different kind of pixelation, when applied to the artificial intelligence, produce different results. So a researcher can actually be doing research with a TopCon camera or cow-sized camera, but then your data is all cow-sized camera. When you actually go to market, you will face problems, because people ask you, so where is your data from? What's the cohort? What have you been tested on? And this can also sometimes create barriers for commercialization. Something to watch out for. And with this particular study, we did work with 6 different camera models and 4 camera brands. And you can see some of them are really like top-notch world-class camera manufacturers. And also we have worked in more than different ethnic groups, because we do know that fundus image, when for different ethnic group, actually produce different pigmentation. So that's where we for this particular landmark study. In addition to that, we have actually increased our capability through another paper published in 2019. And for this particular, for the first study for Selena Plus, we could only tell you whether the patient needs to be referred to the doctor. But for this particular technology, what we have done is to also circulate out for the clinicians, okay, where the problem is, so that it's faster, more accurately able to identify the lesion on the fundus image. And this current product is not only, it's currently got approval because we are working with a Korean company, approval in Singapore, and it's also got its CE mark at the present moment. And so this is the paper that was published in 2019, and it did help. But at the juncture, as an enterprise as well, and also a startup, it's not so easy. Even though it was done in 2019, we only managed to get the approval later, because as a startup, to get through regulatory and to be able to get through approvals, it costs money. And I'll be honest with you, we did not have enough money to take this algorithm through. And it was at much later stages that we managed to get the we managed to get the regulatory approval, and we are just going to be launching it sometime in June. This particular algorithm is also available for you all to see if, at our company's booth. This product is even more interesting. So this product also, paper published in 2019. For this particular study, we compared the data from using CT scan of the heart. So we collected the calcium score, and then basically we trained the AI using on the fundus image. So by actually doing that, we actually managed to find a correlation and managed to train the AI to be able to predict the CAC score, the calcium score of the heart, using the fundus image. By no way it is definitive diagnosis, but it is some form of actually predicting the risk where it will actually encourage patients to actually go for further treatment or to seek medical help. All in all, we are not here to replace the physician, nurses, or any part of the healthcare, but the benefit is to be able to provide and move patients across for referral at the earlier stage and at a very little cost to the patient. We all know prevention is better than cure, and it doesn't matter which CBA chart, the cost-benefit analysis chart you run, is always more expensive to treat when it's later. So the purpose and the objective is to be able to detect the patients early. I was speaking to some of the clinicians yesterday, and some of them told me, I don't really want to know that I wouldn't have a problem, but actually, this is exactly what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to be able to pick up the patients early, treat early, and have a better life for them. That's what we are trying to do. From an ophthalmology point of view, and I'm quite sure you can apply across many other specialty. I got complaints from doctors, eye doctors from across the globe, and they tell me, Stephen, I spent half the time trying to tell patients they are okay, please go home. And actually that is a waste of time for the surgeon, for the clinician, because you get a better return of investment for the doctor to be doing treatment, right? The procedure. That's a higher return of investment. Not in terms of finances, but in terms for the training that was being provided to the specialist. It takes a lot to train a specialist. It takes a lot to train an eye doctor, right? He is better at actually doing the treatment, the procedure, the surgery, and not trying to tell the patient, you're okay, please go home. That is not our objective. That should be what our technology or the technology moving forward is able to do. It's able to filter out this patient, better quality, better referral quality to the doctor, and a better success rate in terms of returns of the clinical outcome. So that's what we are trying to achieve. And again, as I mentioned, we're happy to share this article. If anyone is interested, please write to me on my email at the end of the lecture. So a little bit more about our company and also the culture in Singapore. The gentleman, for the ophthalmologists, some of you may know Professor Wong Tian Yin. He used to be the managing director for the Eye Research Institute, and he's currently in Tsinghua University as a founding member of the founding director for the medical school over there. More importantly, he was nominated as the top 10. He was nominated to join the Academy of Medicine for the United States, and this is rare because there are only 10 of them being offered each year. Daniel is actually a professor who is also an ophthalmologist by training, but he is very much involved in artificial intelligence training. And the three person at the bottom, Prof. Su, Prof. Lee, is actually from the National University of Singapore. So why did I put the chart up over here? What I wanted to show everyone was that they are not only the advisors to the company, but they are also shareholders. But that is a system that we have in Singapore, and that you leave the business to the commercial team, like myself, that are running the business, going out there, flying around the world, meeting with people, and leave the scientists alone to do their job, but to be able to be rewarded at the same time for what they do. So this is a special kind of mechanism we have in Singapore that allows for this relationship between the scientists and the company. Because who want to do something, at the end of the day, I mean, all of us have that part where we want to gratify ourselves to do good, right? But at the same time, end of the day, that doesn't feed the family. I'm sorry to say that. But end of the day, the scientists and the innovators must be rewarded in a certain manner. So it takes a village, the entire system, in order to make the system work. And that's what this is the platform we have in Singapore, and we are proud about it. So that's our founders and also our shareholders in our company. I've also mentioned earlier, this is what I envision to have. You see that little picture over there? That's the camera. That's the automated camera. Okay, it's less than 2 kilo, very, very small. It can be hand carried. And the only reason I haven't hand carried is because there's not enough people to carry the cameras across the customs. And that's the camera that we intend to implement, where we can actually remove the technicians that are currently taking the images totally out of the equation, but it can actually help improve the number of patients that be taken. It's very more, you don't need anyone to operate, and the customer can go and take up the image anytime they want, and they can actually have their results go back to them at any time they want, all within a minute or so. So that's what we are trying to do. We'll be able to generate a report to the end customer, and more importantly, to also build a platform, not only just for diagnosis. When I talk about platform and talk about ecosystem, it is also important to talk about what happens to the patient. You know, I take this report, what am I supposed to do with it? So we are trying to build the entire ecosystem to not only make the appropriate diagnosis, but also to be able to refer the patients to the appropriate specialists. So that's what we are trying to do at the present moment, and we hope to be able to implement this by the end of this year. So what I've actually done so far is to give you a brief journey about our company, what we have actually gone through, a little bit talk about the technology, and moving forward, no enterprise is able to move fast and do all the things I described without money. And we are proud that we're in the midst of finalizing our Series A, where we'll actually price our company at $100 million US, and we'll be closing that hopefully by the time I touch down back in Singapore, and you will actually give us enough ammunition to be able to move on to all the things that I've actually described earlier. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is basically what I have to share today. I'm open for any questions, and I'll be around for the rest of the day. If anyone of you want to talk to me, please come and talk to me. I had a few medical students talk to me, and I can see the fire in them. So please, I'm happy to share what we have actually done. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for this lecture, but many of these patients will have the 4 problems together. Patients with diabetes who developed hypertension could have retinopathy, nephropathy, and cardiac problem, as well as vascular dementia. Could this be separated, or if the patient has more than one pathology?
Sorry. Can I just to clarify your question, you mean whether the algorithms can be separated?
Yes.
Yes, they are all separated.
So if the patient have the 4, could you tell that he has the 4?
At this present moment, no. It's only able to do things that it's able to do. But moving forward, we actually have the ability to tell you whether they have this disease. The current research ongoing now, our team is able to use the fundus image to give a corresponding the HbA1c. So that itself actually is a diabetic indicator. So we are doing that now. Just to fill in what we're also intending to do, we have active research ongoing, 3 different clinical centers in 3 different countries. We are also trying to build an algorithm using the fundus image. I think, how many ophthalmologists? I understand there's quite a lot of ophthalmologists here, right? So, yeah. So we are also building algorithms to be able to take an image now using longitudinal data to predict what will happen to this patient in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years' time. So these are all the research ongoing. So we are basically now making a predictive risk of these patients, but in the future, we are also able to predict what will happen in the future. So that's the research ongoing now on the back end. The money that we are trying to raise is basically trying to drive this research through. And that is actually quite expensive. And after research, you need to prove to the regulatory bodies that there is another challenge. Yeah, just hope to answer your question.
Thank you, Dr. ستيفن, for this nice presentation. And congratulations for your, device.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Just one question. So does the patient have to be physically available, or can you take this retinal image online, or by Zoom or something, or by still picture? I'm not sure. So because you're talking about AI, so I'm assuming everything can be done, and that's
the limitation lies with this.
Yeah.
Okay, the answer to your question is no. The reason now is because the fundus camera technology, there are a technology affixed to the handphone to be able to take a fundus image. But the problem is the quality of the image is not good enough. So just to fill you in, what we look for in the blood vessel is not so simple. It's basically using big data to study the furcation, the angle when the blood vessel splits. And because we know in diabetes and in a lot of all this systemic disease, it's actually the viscosity of the blood. So the pressure to go through actually causes inflammation of the blood vessel. And inflammation of the blood vessels actually cause tortuosity. That means the blood vessels don't go straight. And it's through the naked eye, you're not able to see that. It is only through big data you're able to analyze. Thus, the reason why the image of the quality must be very, very good. Okay, so that is one of the challenges. But we are currently based on the technology provided to us, the only way is to try to automate the image taking process so that they don't actually have to go to a clinic or they don't have to go to a center. And my dream is to be able to put it to as many shopping malls as possible. It can be like an ATM machine, You go there, you put your eyes there, it clicks the picture, it gives you the thing, and if there's anything timely, you'll be able to refer the patient, maybe by the next day. Yes. Yes, doctor.
For me and for you as maxillofacial surgeons, why we don't expand this knowledge to dental lamina, to bulb cells, to stem cells in the oral cavity to reflect the condition of the whole body? This is an idea.
Yes, I have to agree, Professor. Thank you very much for talking to me earlier. I do agree with you. It takes, I know money is a very dirty word, but, especially for doctors, right? But it takes finances and someone with a vision to be able to drive it. And to be able to showcase what you can do. So many a times we have to prove the business model in order to get it done. I can tell you, I did discuss with you the research that's ongoing using 3-shape cameras now in Singapore, and also trying to make a treatment plan using OPG, because this is our field, right? But that's where it's coming. I'll be happy to write to you if we make any breakthrough, and happy to share the technology. But yes, I do agree with you. It is definitely something that we can do. Yes, thank you.
So one point, this sort of marriage between researchers and the commercial team. So you managed to put research findings from 2019 study into a market within 2 to 3 years, or 1 to 2 years.
It's still long. 2 to 3 years in technologies.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the point. When you do collaborate with the commercial part or business people during the conceptualization of the project, this will make sure, or this will increase the chance that the findings will be implemented.
Yes, actually, I worked with a lot of other products. What I find is that the doctors are brilliant. They are fantastic. I mean, the ideas you guys come up with is brilliant. But sometimes there's certain angles that the clinician scientists don't see. And that actually creates problem, yeah, and for the commercialization. And sometimes it can be a very, very small problem that can be a pitfall, right? So it is important, and I find that for certain projects, I'm doing a skin project now, by the way. I'm also doing a detection of skin cancer, and not just any skin cancer. I'm doing melanoma. Yes. Okay, melanoma is one of the vicious one, right? It goes and it metastasizes. And a good doctor was saying, you know, if you can find the solution to find the biomarker for metastasis, I think we solve a lot of problem, right? Because we just excise whatever that area is, and we know it's not going to spread, right? But when the scientist came to me, he said, I want to do melanoma. I said, okay, but tell me, what's the prevalence of melanoma? Prevalence of melanoma is very, very small, but it is significant, and it does kill patients. So what we did eventually, we said, since you're building an algorithm and you're dealing with all the cancer images, right? Why not we train a second algorithm to detect any form of skin cancer, basal cell, squamous cell, you know, and also melanoma. And what we did was, from the business angle, right at the early stage when he was still in development, we came up with an algorithm to be able to detect any form of skin cancer just by taking a picture of the mole or nevus on any part of the body. You insert basically certain parameters, which part of the body, and it gives you a predictive risk. And what it does is that it will basically refer to the doctors who actually owns the higher version, the one that is able to detect melanoma specifically, because it uses the A, B, C, D, E kind of criteria, instead of just using deep learning. And in which case, what we did was, for the one that can detect any form of skin cancer, we actually made it free so that many people will try to download the app, right? And in a small test bed, we found that it worked. And what happened was that we were actually providing the doctors who actually had the high-end melanoma detection, cancer detection tool in their offices, so that we could actually drive traffic there. Well, it sounds interesting, right? I just built the ecosystem. But the question is, if I did not build this ecosystem, I just had this ability to detect melanoma using a dermoscope, a specialized dermoscope. And I put it in the doctor's office, in the GP's office, who most probably the people who need it most, right? It won't work. It just won't work. Because the first and foremost, you cannot convince the doctor, right? If it's a country where prevalence of melanoma is not that high, and you want the doctor to buy something that is with a very low prevalence, they won't buy. But if you create the demand, because the app is free and it keeps telling you, please go and see the doctor, you make a business case for the doctor who is going to purchase the hardware from you. And you are literally helping them advertise their clinic services. So this is where I say where innovation and the commercial part meet. Yeah, these are the little pitfalls if we did not think through right at the beginning. Therefore, my answer to the question is, it is important for us to be able to be seated in that room together with the scientists at the early stage. That's what my suggestion is. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Dr. Ang. Is it possible that you integrate your AI technology into other ophthalmological tests like OCT and OCT angio, so we can get more accurate grading or analysis of the blood vessels in the retina?
Sorry, I didn't quite your question. Please repeat.
Is this technology integratable into optical coherence tomography and angiography? So OCT, so we can get more accurate analysis of the blood vessels, because you mentioned that the bifurcation and the tortuosity can be used in the analysis of future diseases?
That's a very, 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 very good question. I tell you what we are doing, why we are doing it, and why we are not doing it as well. I agree with you, using the OCT, we can see different layers, right? Because we literally drew a cross-section across the different layers of the eye. Fantastic. We do know that we can pick up diseases much earlier with OCT, because the changes can be detected on the OCT. But then my question asking for a business case, I can tell you the research is ongoing in SERI, Singapore Eye Research Institute. It's ongoing. In fact, Professor Daniel Ting is working on it, right? The only problem with that, when I think about that technology, is the cost of OCT. If I want to be doing screening, it must be widespread, right? It must go everywhere. But and that's the reason why the cameras I came up with are as small as possible, as light as possible, as cheap as possible, right? But for the technology today, OCTs are still quite expensive, and there isn't a cheaper solution to it. The question, the challenge is about scalability. Is how can I scale the business, right? I can prove the technology, but then every single point I want to implement, doctor, I'm sorry, you have to buy an OCT, and it's going to be like $60,000, right? And how well accepted it is going to be. I face the same problem just for diabetic retinopathy, right? Fundus camera, you need a Topcon, is $30,000. It's very difficult to get primary care doctors to use it because end of the day, it's the primary care that is going to be doing it. I cannot see an ophthalmologist trying to use their OCT machine to be able to make diagnosis for systemic disease because that's not going to happen, right? They're busy enough, right? They're busy enough. So that is the challenge. So we are doing it, but yet we have not found the angle from a hardware perspective, how I'm able to scale the business. So that is the challenge I'm facing at the present moment. But you are spot on. It does able to provide much accurate and much earlier diagnosis. I have to agree with you.
Why Singapore? I'm Sahar Shuqaidif, medical doctor, same medical school, but public health in Hopkins. And I know in the 90s, early 2000, big guy came to Singapore to establish research hub in Singapore. I don't know why they did not proceed. Anyhow, maybe others tried too, but I appreciate Singapore without visiting because they have a strong public health system. Nobody tries to go to Singapore with tobacco. He will pay or she will pay money at the airport, right?
Yes, you're right. And
okay.
Don't go to Singapore with any chewing gum.
One more, chewing gum is in the black market. You cannot buy chewing gum in Singapore. Why? Other than health, London pays £150 million a year to clean the streets from the chewing gum leftovers. Anyhow, but it has other reasons. What I like about what you said first is your declaration, this is not a marketing session. Many clinicians, researchers, do not declare where they come from. We have to make it number one slide that I do not represent the industry. I received this from the industry. We have to learn it. This is part of research. The second question for you. In the 80s, when the PC came, the XT, the old times, people were afraid that this will replace humans. And now people working in IT are more than any other industry. So where do we come into artificial intelligence and practice? I can hear you saying you want to put the machine in the shopping malls. And I can hear the doctor saying, can we do it on telemedicine? So where are we on this scare for the clinicians who are already clinicians, some freshly graduated, say in 10 years I'll be obsolete or not? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think the crux of the question is, first and foremost, I don't represent any medical research facility. I represent EyRIS, so I speak as EyRIS at the present moment. So that's number one to clarify. Whether AI will replace human, I don't think it's in a short while. And just for your information, I'm a clinician myself. I'm in the same trade with a dear professor here in Max Fac Surgery. And I really don't think that the time has come for ourselves to be replaced. I think the technologies available today will make us work smarter. You'll be able to help us drive more patients and for us to be able to basically be more productive in what we're currently doing. I think that is the basic, the reason why we have actually developed the algorithms, never to replace anyone. Because end of the day, I ask myself a very simple question every time. And I remember this professor, his name is Professor Davenport, when I was in the Birmingham Medical School. And my parents visited me, and I saw them. I actually cleaned up their mouth and did some simple procedure for them. At the end of it, I was still a student. I told the professor, I said, Prof, you know, I feel very stressed treating my own parents, right? I think all of us feel it, right? And it was just basic procedure. And my prof reminded me then that you must always have that heart, that ability to be so careful in what you do for our patients. And you always remember that for the rest of your career, and then you'll be okay as a doctor. That's what Professor Davenport said to me. I use that example to reapply back to artificial intelligence. Will I send my parents to be making a diagnosis, or basically just to test out whether they have a problem and whether they should be quickly being flagged up to see the doctors? The answer is yes. But would I leave my parents at a total discretion of artificial intelligence to treat my parents and make their final decision? I think in all our hearts, the answer is no, right? The artificial intelligence is there to aid and to increase productivity, but I don't think in the short run it's be there to be able to replace humans. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you for this lovely device and invention. And my question is for you, Mr. Stephen, Dr. Stephen, and Dr. Saif as well. I'm an ophthalmologist, and in my practice, we face, as other ophthalmologists, we face problems. And one of them was this early detection of diabetic retinopathy and other problems. And in my work, I followed up some research done by students in school, in my school, in the Jubilee School. And they are all having this lovely ideas about similar ideas as EyRIS of detecting different diseases. So my question is, when is the best time to start our research and to take research seriously? So do we take research done by school students who are gifted or who have some ideas? Do we take it seriously at that stage, or do we wait until they graduate from medical school or residency in order to have things monetized and having a business out of their ideas?
That's a brilliant question. In fact, there was 2 medical students who approached me earlier. They were asking me, you know, I got this. Actually, my point to you is, actually I always find the younger students or the students tend to be very, very imaginative. And the answer to your question is, I will listen to them and I will try to work it out with them. For me, I'm also a father. I hope they finish their education. But I think we should not listen to them. We should try to develop and see what we can do with it. We do know that a lot of our billionaires in the US, such as even like Bill Gates, I believe, several of them never finished university. But I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.